Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel and to part 4 of my series called How I Edit My Wedding Films, where I dive into all the details of how I edit my wedding films from organization and pre-production on the front end, all the way through to final delivery. Today we're chatting about a super fun component of wedding films, and that is editing the visual effects, specifically 5 visual effects that I use on all of my wedding films to give them the extra kick, extra punch, extra spice, extra magic. You fill in the synonym. Today we're talking visual effects. So before we actually dive into all of the visual effects that I use and these kind of top 5 ones that I use on all my films, I do want to say these are definitely not the only visual effects that I use. I use a ton of different effects and tons of different plugins, but I specifically wanted to talk about these 5 today because these 5 are ones that I use on almost all of my wedding films, if not like every film I ever make. And so I just wanted to talk about kind of the ones that are the biggest tools in my arsenal. So let's dive into those 5. So the first visual effect that I use is time remapping. And by time remapping, I mean like high speed stuff and slow motion stuff, and kind of integrating that throughout the film. Obviously, this isn't like a plugin that you use. This is something you specifically do within Premiere or Final Cut or whatever editing system you're using to slow down clips and kind of stretch those out and make slow motion, or to speed things up and to kind of give a normal speed clip a much faster speed ramp all the way through. And so the way I use this in my films, I shoot most of those at 120 frames per second, which basically means you can slow down that clip 5 times down to 20% speed. This kind of gives that nice buttery smooth, silky smooth kind of visual component to my wedding films and that ultra slow motion kind of effect, which is really fun. But then I don't want all of my films to just be slow motion entirely all the way through. And so what I'll do is kind of scattered throughout the films, I'll integrate full speed clips where I run those clips just at normal speed, running at what was, the speed that people were actually walking or talking or moving. So you have real life motion happening. I'll also speed those clips up to well beyond the actual speed that people were walking or moving. If I want to have a quick like whip transition over somewhere, I want to like have a kind of in-camera effect to kind of like slide up into a new scene or a new moment or something like that. And so like integrating those super slow motion clips and then those really high speed motion can really be a cool way to just add some spice to your wedding films. So the second visual effect that I use in basically every film I've ever made is the strobe effect. So you'll find this just under the visual effects in Premiere. It's called Strobe Light. And what this was initially kind of designed to do in Premiere is just to create like a flashing white strobe effect on your sequence or over a clip, just kind of have some flashing white lights. But what you can do is you can click that little makes layer transparent button, and what that will actually do is take your clip and turn that clip off. And so I'll show you on the screen kind of the settings that I use to get the strobe effect that I like. I've actually created my own preset of the settings that I like, so I can just drag that on my clips. And then I like to turn the random strobe generator on, so it's not just a constant strobing effect. It kind of like glitches a little bit. And then I'll use the random seed control to kind of adjust where that little glitch and where that strobe happens. And so it just kind of adds some randomness into the strobe. And so this is actually really cool if you add and stack multiple different strobes on top of each other, and you kind of drag that random seed and that random strobe generator around. You can have these really kind of trippy, flashy back and forth effects. And I use this on text, I use this on visuals, I use this when I'm kind of having transitional overlays that I want to have like kind of glitch around. But this is a really versatile tool that you can use to achieve a really cool effect throughout the entire film. So the third visual effect that I use is overlays and in-camera transitions. Overlays are a great way to just add some visual dynamic to your wedding film without having to do a ton of editing. But what's fun about visual overlays is you can really play with the opacities, and then you can add some of those like time remapping, and you can add some strobe effects and stuff on there to achieve some really cool results. And so if you just kind of sit down, play with the opacities, and then maybe add some strobes, time remap those, and so those overlays are happening really quickly. With the strobe effect, you can get some really cool kind of like glittery effects using those overlays. And then I also create my own transitions and overlays in camera on every job that I shoot. And so I'll shoot some out of focus, blurry kind of stuff with light. If I'm at a wedding reception, I'll shoot some out of focus stuff of chandeliers and use champagne glasses to get these cool glass overlays. But I shoot all these transitions in camera, and it really helps kind of add some cool extra spice, just playing with those opacities and just getting some really cool effects there. The fourth visual effect that I use in all of my films are I use these like GIF animations. I'll shoot these bursts of high frame per second raw photos, and then I'll take those into Lightroom, edit all those photos as black and whites, export all of them, then import those into Premiere and create sequences of those bursts of stills. So I basically have like a GIF animation, like a stop motion sequence within Premiere. And then I'll take that and I'll use kind of some of those overlays and some of those effects to turn that little GIF animation into what basically looks like a Super 8mm camera. So I have these video clips that I've created out of stills that feel like they're shot in Super 8. And so I do this by adding some overlays, I add some grain, I add some like light leaks and effects and stuff. And it's a really, really cool way to achieve this kind of vintage film look. And then for me, because I shoot photo and video, I can grab any one of those stills, deliver that still to the client as an image, but then also use the entire sequence to deliver it as a video within the film. And then the final visual effect that I use on almost all of my wedding films are what I call bursts. So when I finish editing the entire wedding film, I will copy the entire sequence, and then I'll go in and remove all of the effects, all the overlays. And so basically I'll have an entire sequence of just a bunch of clips one after another. And then I'll go through all those clips and grab one frame of each clip so that I'll have an entire sequence of one frame of every single clip from the entire wedding film, where if you just hit play, you basically see the entire wedding film in like 4 seconds. And then what I use this for is in combination with some of that time remapping, some of those strobe effects, add some overlays, add some glitches and that kind of stuff. You can use this burst to create some really, really cool like ramps up if you kind of crossfade this in, add some really cool dynamic on the dance floor if you add those with some overlays and some opacities and stuff. And like maybe before a big drop in the film, like the first kiss or the first dance or something like that, I'll have this whole burst show and it'll show you basically the entire wedding film. And the way that I build that burst is by going through the entire wedding film I've already created and choosing an intentional one frame for every single clip. And then you have a whole sequence of 4 to 8 seconds where you can use any part of that burst to add some really cool visual dynamic to your wedding film. So those are 5 visual effects that I use in all of my wedding films. Again, this is not a comprehensive list. I use a ton more plugins and effects and all that kind of stuff, but these are 5 that I use on most of my wedding films, if not all of my wedding films. And you've, I'm sure, seen those in my videos here on YouTube as well. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you've learned something or something's been super inspirational for you, please feel free to drop that in the comments. It really helps me to know that you're getting something out of this channel. All right, I will see you right back here next week as we talk about color grading and continue this How I Edit My Wedding Films series. All right, peace guys.